One of the state's most powerful lawmakers is from Western New York, Senate Minority Leader Rob Ortt.
Now, his road to Albany not only went through his hometown of North Tonawanda, but a battlefield halfway around the world in Afghanistan, touching on politics and another very important topic, not only to our community, but to Senator Rob Ortt. Senator, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me both.
We'll start with where we left off right there. We've been doing a number of live interviews on PTSD. That, of course, really came back to the forefront after the gentleman in Las Vegas on New Year's Day blew up the Cybertruck and all of the revelations that came out from then. And so we had the idea to get people to talk about this from a civilian, a veteran, and a law enforcement or first responder perspective.
Sure.
So here you are, a veteran. Thank you for your service to this country, Rob.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your experiences, without getting too personal, of course, either with colleagues or with other veterans and others with PTSD.
Yeah, so I do have I don't want to overstate it, but there was a soldier that I served with. We lost 4 soldiers when I was over in Afghanistan from our police mentor team, and we had a soldier who really was challenged when he returned. I think with PTSD from the loss of those soldiers, from the guilt that he felt it maybe should have been him and it was someone else, which is a real thing for a lot of soldiers to come back. And so, and everyone deals with it differently, right? That's sort of the tricky thing. It doesn't manifest the same for everybody, and it doesn't always manifest the same time for everybody. Some soldiers can come back and be here and be fine for many years, and it can manifest later. There can be other triggers in their own life that bring it to the forefront too, right? So you're talking about mental health ultimately. We have a program here in New York, which we'll talk about, but one of the great things I get to do as a lawmaker is to be able to advocate for veterans and be able to talk about these things. And one of the things I always try to remind folks is veterans do not want to see themselves as damaged. And it's very important that while what happened in Vegas was a tragedy, I don't want people to mistake, people who didn't serve maybe, to think of veterans as like damaged and ticking time bombs, because that's just not reality. This was a tragedy, certainly, and ultimately it was a suicide, right? It was somebody who took their life. Veterans take their lives at about 22 a day, higher than the civilian population, and that's a tragedy in and of itself.
Part of these conversations we've been having on News 4, we've talked a lot about how far care has come, how far research has come. From now the lawmaker side of things, how far would you say funding and resources have gone in New York State? So
in the state of New York, I mean, a lot of, when we talk about veterans' health benefits, mental health benefits, a lot of that obviously goes through the VA, right, and is federally funded. Different states have taken different approaches. New York State has a program called the Joseph P. Dwyer program. And when I was elected 10 years ago, it was not in every county. Today it is. So the funding has increased. Every county gets, I think, a minimum of $185,000 to provide and it's a peer-to-peer program. It's not a clinical program. It's peer-to-peer. It's named after PFC Joseph P. Dwyer, a veteran from Long Island who did take his own life after coming back from Iraq. He's like a lot of veterans, he survived a combat tour, but he was not able to survive that transition. But we do that program here in New York State. It was actually started by former Congressman Lee Zeldin, now heading the EPA, or soon to be heading the EPA. But he started that. I think it was maybe his constituent that took his life. But it's a program that is unique in New York. I would love to see it at a federal level, because I think veterans are much more comfortable oftentimes talking to other veterans, and not maybe a doctor or a clinician or a mental health professional. And that veteran peer-to-peer colleague very often plays a huge role in saving lives or getting a veteran who's been thinking about taking their own life to seek help instead. So it's been I think a wild success, and there's no question in my mind it has saved lives here in New York.
That's great. Great to know that there are resources, that there are programs that are available, and we continue to tout those programs. So please, if you or someone else you know may seem like they need some help, reach out. There are resources available. If we could switch gears now, pretty drastically, if you could. On Tuesday, Governor Kathy Hochul issued her State of the State annual address. Let's talk about some of the proposals that were included in there. Of course, the devil is in the details with a lot of these, and the legislature will have the ultimate say come April 1st, and the negotiations start now. What is your first reaction to what you heard on Tuesday afternoon?
So, I've sat through a lot of State of the States, and, a lot of them are big on obviously platitudes and goals, but the devil's in the details. And ultimately, the budget address, which is coming up, is where I think you'll learn, okay, what is the cost of these programs? How does it look? How are we going to fund it? And then, of course, the legislature gets their sort of take at it. The governor did talk about taxes and about affordability, not surprisingly. I don't know that what she's proposing really is going to address, $300 or $500 one-time checks. No one's going to say no, right? But I don't know if that's going to solve the hurt that people are feeling at the kitchen table.
Let me ask you, when you talk about those refund checks, because the governor has touted that among one of her main proposals, sometime next fall, hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers could be receiving this check of $300 or $500, depending on your level of income, family size, things like that. Rob, do you think that $300, $500 is commensurate with the level of taxation in New York State?
No, it's not. And it's not even commensurate with, we've seen increases in heating and energy bills, partly due to policies in Albany. We've seen increases, if you live downstate, congestion pricing and new tolling that's going into place in the city of New York. We've seen increases in farm and the cost for farms to get their food and produce to market. Those things are driving up housing costs, energy costs, taxes, and $500, while I'm sure it'll add up to billions of dollars statewide, it is not the long. We need a broader, deeper tax cut, tax relief for a lot of working families. I don't know if this is going to cut it. We'll see what the final budget has.
Senator, we are out of time, but I want to ask you one last question. When we're talking about, the GOP, what they think are solutions, you recently announced the Liberate New York agenda. Give us a brief rundown of what that is.
Sure. We believe that allowing people to keep more money in their checks to begin with, instead of giving it back to them in a one-time check. We believe in allowing people to make more decisions over their life, whether it's a business, whether it's their family, whether it's their safety. But ultimately, the lieutenant governor said something on opening day. He said, hopes and dreams. We want people, hopes and dreams have a cost to them. And the reality is in New York, the cost is higher, which is why people are leaving New York to pursue their hopes and dreams in other states. So we need to, I think, really take that to heart and make it more affordable, more safe for people to pursue their hopes and dreams here in New York State.
Senator Rob Ortt, thank you so much for joining us. That is a conversation that, of course, began really on Tuesday and will be had over the next several months leading up to April 1st. I'm sure we'll be talking with the senator and many others about that topic. Senator Rob Ortt, thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.